The day a black CEO was treated like trash until the truth hit hard. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. You people never tip anyway. The words cut through the restaurant like broken glass. A few coins slipped from the manager's hand, scattering across the white linen and into the wine glass with a metallic chime that made heads turn. Marcus Carter didn't move, didn't blink. Across from him stood Julia Simmons, the floor manager of Echelon Prime, a luxury midtown restaurant where arrogance was served with the dessert. She straightened her blazer, trying to look composed even as her face flushed red. The silence that followed wasn't calm, it was loaded. Phones lifted. A server froze mid-step. Someone whispered, "Did she just say that?" Marcus stayed seated, posture steady, eyes unreadable. Calm was his armor. Julia snapped again, louder, "Keep the change. Take your little attitude somewhere else." The waiter beside her whispered, "Ma'am, please." Julia waved him off. "Security's on standby. Don't worry about it." Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. Now, back to Marcus Carter. At table 7, untouched plates cooled beneath crystal light. Conversations dropped to a nervous hush. A man in a gray suit started recording quietly from his phone. Another leaned to his friend and muttered, "This is going viral." Julia stepped closer, nails clicking against the edge of the table. "You think you can just walk in here dressed like that and expect service? This isn't a soup kitchen." Marcus looked up. "You're right," he said softly. "It isn't." She blinked, thrown off by his tone level, unhurried, deliberate. That composure made her angrier. "Get up before I have you escorted," she said. Marcus leaned back slightly, gaze sweeping the room, the marble floor, the gold fixtures, the guests pretending not to watch. Everything gleamed except human decency. In the corner, a young server, Evan, barely 22, took a step forward. "Ma'am, his payment cleared. His reservation's valid." Julia turned on him. "You defending him? Then start packing your things." The room froze again. Marcus exhaled once, the slow, measured kind that turns silence into pressure. Julia smirked, mistaking stillness for surrender. "We've had enough scammers this week." Marcus looked up, eyes steady. "Do I look like a scam to you?" "You look like trouble." He almost smiled. "Not yet." A chill rolled through the air, subtle, electric, prophetic. Because in 10 minutes, the woman who humiliated him in her own restaurant would realize whose name was on every paycheck in the building. But for now, all anyone saw was a quiet black man in a blue sweater, sitting still while arrogance mistook itself for power. The insult had landed. The reckoning was on its way. That morning, Marcus Carter didn't look like someone who owned half the skyline. He wore a navy sweater, dark jeans, and a pair of worn brown loafers that told no stories, at least not the kind people like Julia cared to hear. No entourage, no Rolex, no driver waiting outside. Just a man with quiet eyes walking into Echelon Prime, the crown jewel of the very empire he built. He'd founded Echelon Group 15 years earlier, a network of high-end restaurants known for precision, integrity, and fairness. But recently, too many whispers had reached him. Stories about how people who looked like him were treated differently once they walked through those glass doors. So he came alone, anonymous, to see the truth for himself. When he entered, the hostess didn't greet him. She looked him up and down, the way someone inspects a misplaced package. "Sir, this section is for reservations only," she said. Marcus nodded. "Good. I have one." "Under what name?" "Carter." She hesitated. The name meant nothing to her. Or maybe it meant too much. She just didn't expect it to belong to him. Still, she led him to a table near the window, far from the main crowd. It was the seat they gave people when they wanted them to be seen but not noticed. Marcus didn't mind. That's exactly what he wanted. He ordered a glass of water and scanned the menu slowly. Behind his calm exterior, a network of silent systems was already watching. Every echelon restaurant was fitted with discrete internal monitors, employee interactions, audio logs, performance feedback. Marcus had built them for quality assurance, not vengeance. But today, they'd serve both. A notification buzzed on his phone. Rachel Harris, his executive assistant, texted, "Audit system live. Staff under observation. Proceed when ready." Marcus typed back one word, "Copy." From the corner, he could see Julia, the manager, gliding through the room like she owned it. He watched her smile warmly at a white couple near the bar, bend slightly as she handed them their wine. The same Julia who'd later throw coins at him without hesitation. A small irony tugged at the edge of his mouth. When his food arrived, the waiter set down the plate quickly, avoiding eye contact. "Enjoy your meal," he said, already turning away. "Thank you," Marcus replied, genuine, calm. But the young man flinched like politeness was a trap. He noticed how easily fear traveled through this place from manager to staff, from staff to guest. A culture shaped not by excellence, but by hierarchy. He'd seen it before in meetings where his voice had been questioned until someone read his title out loud, in boardrooms where suits tried to talk over the man who signed their checks. He'd learned early. Silence was not surrender. It was surveillance. Julia appeared again, glancing his way with thinly veiled suspicion. Maybe the sweater bothered her. Maybe the color of the man wearing it did. She whispered something to another server, who nodded and disappeared toward the kitchen. Marcus could almost guess the next 10 minutes. A phone call to verify his card. An accusation about unverified guests. Maybe even a scene. He didn't mind. Truth had a way of revealing itself when arrogance felt safe. He picked up his fork, cut into the steak, and chewed slowly, deliberate, unbothered. Every move was quiet, precise, controlled. Outside the window, New York moved fast. Taxis, crowds, flashing lights, but inside, time seemed to hold its breath. When the waiter returned, Julia followed close behind. Her smile was gone. "Sir," she began, "there seems to be an issue with your payment method." Marcus set down his knife. "That's impossible. We just need to verify where the funds are coming from," she said, tone flattening into something rehearsed. He looked up. "Of course you do." And in that pause, that long, careful second, every warning sign he'd hoped not to see confirmed itself. Julia wasn't checking a card. She was checking a prejudice. The test had begun. The hum of conversation faded into an uneasy hush. Julia's heels clicked like a metronome of arrogance as she crossed the marble floor, holding Marcus's black card between two fingers, not delicately, but like evidence. "Sir," she said, voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear, "we just ran this. It's unusual." Marcus didn't look up. "Unusual how?" Julia smirked. "Let's just say cards like this don't usually belong to men who dine alone or dress like that." Her words drew quiet laughter from a couple 2 tables over, the kind that hides behind napkins but lands like slaps. Marcus placed his fork down gently. "You should be careful with assumptions." "Assumptions?" she echoed, tilting her head. "I call it experience." A few phones were already up. Guests sensed something was about to unfold. The air thickened, that kind of pressure you feel before a storm breaks. The young waiter, Evan, lingered near the corner. His face said what he couldn't. "This isn't right." Julia turned toward him. "You verified this payment?" "Yes, ma'am. It cleared." "Run it again." "I already did." "Then you didn't do it right." Her tone sharpened like glass. Evan hesitated, eyes darting between them. "It's the system, not me." "Then maybe the system's as fake as his card." The room inhaled as one. Marcus leaned back, calm, almost clinical. "Would you like to call the bank yourself? They'll confirm the account balance and ownership." Julia crossed her arms. "I'd rather call security. They can sort this out while we check for fraud." A man at the bar murmured, "This is getting ugly." Another whispered, "Don't film, just watch." But they filmed anyway. Evan took a small step forward. "Ma'am, please. He hasn't done anything wrong." Julia shot him a look sharp enough to silence him. "You're out of line, Evan. Go polish the silverware." He didn't move. "No, I'm not." Her eyes flared. "Do you want to lose your job over some stranger?" Marcus's gaze flicked to Evan, a small nod, subtle but enough to say thank you. Julia noticed it. "Oh, I see," she sneered. "You two friends now? Is this some social experiment?" Marcus finally stood, slow and deliberate. His presence seemed to stretch taller than the room could hold. "Ma'am, he said quietly. If I wanted an experiment, I'd have told you. That tone even, measured, powerful, made the room lean in. But Julia wasn't backing down. You think you can intimidate me? This is my restaurant. Marcus's voice stayed soft. Is it? That single question rippled through the room like thunder muffled by marble. She blinked, unsure why those two words felt heavier than they should. From the corner, a couple near the window exchanged glances. He looks familiar, the woman whispered. Where have I seen him? Her partner shrugged. Maybe online, TikTok or something. Julia reached for the phone at the hostess stand. I'm calling corporate. This card needs verification. Marcus nodded once. You should. She hesitated at his calm. The confidence in his stillness unnerved her. She turned away, pretending control, dialing numbers that would soon turn against her. Behind her, Evan exhaled, whispering to another staffer. He's someone. You can just feel it. The other server replied under her breath. Yeah, but she's not going to listen. At table 7, Marcus resumed his seat as if reclaiming gravity itself. The whispers swelled around him, feeding the tension like oxygen to a flame. He looked down at his untouched glass of water, the ripples faint but constant. A metaphor in motion, because in places like this, dignity was the first thing disturbed and the last thing restored. He straightened his sleeves, checked the time, and whispered under his breath, almost to himself, right on schedule. Evan's palms were slick with sweat. He could hear his own pulse over the restaurant's background jazz, which had somehow turned sinister too smooth for the tension it now floated above. Julia was still on the phone, her voice sharp, performative. Yes, I need to verify a suspicious transaction, she said. The cardholder claims to be Marcus Carter. Uh-huh. Yes, that's the name. The moment she said it, Evan's head snapped up. He knew that name. He'd seen it a dozen times on training videos, on the plaques in the hallway near staff orientation, on the cover of the company handbook. Marcus Carter, founder and CEO of Echelon Group. His throat went dry. Julia was talking to no one, or maybe to her own downfall. Yes, I'll hold, she said, fake polite, glancing at Marcus like she'd already won. These people always think a fancy card makes them somebody. Evan took a hesitant step forward. Ma'am, not now. Ma'am, that name? I said not now. Her tone cracked through him like a whip, but he couldn't stand still anymore. He looked at Marcus, who met his eyes, calm, patient, almost encouraging. Evan swallowed hard, then spoke loud enough for half the room to hear. That name is real. He's real. He's the owner. The room froze. Julia turned, eyes wide, voice trembling between rage and disbelief. What did you just say? Evan's chest rose and fell. I said he owns this restaurant. All of them. Echelon Group. I saw the name in the handbook this morning. A wave of murmurs rolled through the dining room like the first gust before a storm. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered, Wait, seriously. Julia's hand tightened around the phone. That's ridiculous, she snapped. You expect me to believe this? She gestured toward Marcus. Is the Marcus Carter? Evan didn't back down. Yes, ma'am, and you just threw money at him. Julia laughed loud, brittle, desperate. You kids will say anything to save your jobs. But the laughter didn't land. It bounced off silence, because every guest in the restaurant was watching now. Cameras raised, no more whispers, just truth, creeping in through the cracks of arrogance. Marcus finally spoke, voice steady but deep enough to command the air. You don't need to defend me, son. Let them finish what they started. Evan hesitated. Sir, I can't just stand here. Marcus's gaze softened. Then stand for what's right. Something in his tone, not loud, not angry, carried more authority than Julia's entire posture. At the next table, a woman in a silver dress looked up from her phone. He's telling the truth, she said. Google him. Ugh. Within seconds, the hum of searching filled the air, typing, scrolling, gasps. Someone whispered, Oh my God, he's really the CEO. Julia's face drained of color. Her hand dropped from the phone. That can't be. Marcus turned his head slightly, meeting her eyes for the first time in full. You wanted verification, he said quietly. Now you have it. Evan stepped back, but not out of fear, out of respect. The room felt different now. The balance had shifted. Every server, every guest, even the hostess at the door seemed to stand a little taller, as if the simple act of recognition had restored gravity itself. Julia stumbled for words. I, I didn't know, Marcus interrupted gently but with finality. You didn't want to know. And that was worse. He looked toward Evan. Thank you for speaking up. Evan nodded, voice barely a whisper. Someone had to. Marcus smiled faintly. That's how change starts. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was awakening. And in that silence, something shifted in everyone watching. They realized they hadn't just seen a confrontation, they'd witnessed a revelation. Julia's face was a portrait of panic painted over pride. She stood there, phone still in hand, trembling not from guilt yet, but from disbelief that the audience she once commanded had turned against her. Enough of this circus, she snapped, her voice cracking. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Marcus didn't move. You don't have to ask, you have to listen. The words were calm, but they hit harder than any shout. Julia marched closer, her perfume sharp in the air, her authority unraveling with each step. You're not intimidating anyone, she hissed. You think because you've got people recording you can embarrass me? Not in my restaurant. Evan took a step forward. Ma'am, please. She whirled around. Stay out of this. Her hand came down, not a slap, not quite, but a shove against Marcus's shoulder. It wasn't forceful, but it was enough. Enough to cross a line she could never uncross. The entire room gasped. Silverware froze midair. The only sound was a glass tipping over somewhere in the back, shattering like punctuation at the end of her mistake. Marcus didn't flinch, didn't even blink. He just looked at her and time seemed to slow. Flashback, 20 years earlier. Atlanta. Marcus was 19, wearing his best thrift store blazer, standing in the lobby of a downtown hotel after a job interview. The front desk clerk looked him over once and said, "We don't need more janitors." He'd smiled politely, even though he'd applied for assistant manager. When he corrected her, she waved him off. The management positions are already filled. He remembered the sting, not in her words, but in her certainty. That day, he'd walked out promising himself two things. He would never let humiliation define him, and he would build something no one could take away. Back to present. Julia's fingers were still pressed against his shoulder when she realized the weight beneath them wasn't weakness, it was power. Marcus spoke softly. You just made this official. She stepped back, her hand trembling. You can't talk to me like an employee, he interrupted. You're right. Normally I'd have HR handle this, but since you wanted a show, he lifted his phone slowly, tapping the screen once. Let's make it live. From the speaker, Rachel's voice came through, crisp and composed. Recording started, Mr. Carter. Security feed confirmed. Julia's eyes widened. Wait, what? You're actually... Marcus turned the phone toward her, letting the camera catch everything. You wanted proof? So do I. Guests around the room leaned in. The energy had shifted again, no longer disbelief, but expectation. Everyone knew justice was circling closer. Julia's voice broke. Look, I didn't mean... Intent doesn't erase impact, Marcus said, and impact is what people remember. Her jaw trembled. You're ruining my life. Marcus's gaze softened, but not enough to save her. You ruined your own when you forgot respect was part of the job description. The young server, Evan, looked between them, his eyes wet but proud. Sir, what do you want me to do? Marcus looked around the room at the servers, the guests, the shattered glass on the floor and said quietly, Nothing. The truth is already working. He turned back to Julia. In about 3 minutes, you'll understand what I mean. Julia took a step backward, shaking her head. This is crazy. I was just doing my job. No, Marcus said, his tone final. You were doing your judgment. There's a difference. He set the phone down on the table, the live feed still rolling. The restaurant was utterly silent now. You could almost hear hearts beating hers loudest of all. Then Marcus added, almost like an afterthought, you should have checked the name on the door before you checked the name on the card. It wasn't anger. It was truth delivered with precision. And for the first time, Julia realized she hadn't just disrespected a customer. She'd assaulted her employer. The silence after the shove lingered like smoke. Julia's confidence, once sharp as crystal, now hung by a thread and everyone in the room could see it. Marcus stayed seated, voice calm, deliberate. Rachel, he said softly into the phone, initiate internal audit protocol. The speaker crackled. Rachel's tone came through smooth, professional, precise. Understood, Mr. Carter. Confirming location. Echelon Prime, Midtown. Timestamp logged. Would you like to proceed with system lockdown? Julia blinked. What did she just say? Marcus didn't answer her. He didn't need to. The control in his silence was louder than any explanation. Proceed, he said. Copy that. All active staff accounts at this branch are now under review. System feed live. A notification tone chimed from the host stand. The staff tablet blinked once, then again, before flashing corporate override, audit in progress. Every eye in the restaurant darted to the glowing screen. Julia stepped back. Wait a minute, this isn't. You can't just walk in here and... Walk in here? Marcus cut in, still quiet. That's exactly what I did, and you showed me what happens when people like me do. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Evan stood near the bar, frozen between awe and relief. The younger hostess whispered to him, He's actually doing it. He's running the system. Oh. Rachel's voice returned, steady as ever. HR has joined the call. Would you like me to confirm staff positions for termination review? Julia's face drained white. Termination review? Marcus leaned back slightly, adjusting his cuffs. Yes, Rachel. Start with management. The words landed like thunder in a glass room. Confirmed. Julia tried to laugh, but it came out broken. You can't, there's no way you... This isn't... But before she could finish, the door near the kitchen opened. 2 corporate security officers entered quietly, dressed in plain suits, earpieces in place. Their presence was calm, not hostile but absolute. The guests whispered, the realization spreading through them like wildfire. This wasn't a confrontation anymore. It was an audit in real time. One of the officers approached Marcus. Mr. Carter, he said respectfully, systems are synchronized. Would you like this handled privately? Marcus shook his head. No, publicly. The lesson matters more than the embarrassment. Julia backed toward the wall. This is insane. I've worked here for years. And in all those years, Marcus said, his voice dropping lower, you forgot the first policy in our handbook. She swallowed. What policy? Respect. Non-negotiable. A murmur of agreement rose among the guests. Phones were everywhere now, recording, documenting the same digital witnesses that once made her feel powerful, now sealing her fate. Rachel's voice chimed again through the phone. Manager ID 342, Julia Simmons. Audit confirmed. Mr. Carter, do you wish to proceed with administrative suspension? Marcus's answer was simple. Effective immediately. Acknowledged. At the hostess podium, Julia's ID badge beeped red, flashing access denied. The color bled across her face like guilt made visible. Evan exhaled, shaking his head slowly. It's really happening. Marcus finally rose from his chair. Every movement was precise, as if he'd been choreographing this moment all along. I told you, he said quietly. Intent doesn't erase impact, but accountability can. Julia's voice broke. Please, Mr. Carter, I didn't mean to... He stopped her with a look not cruel, but final. You didn't mean to be caught. And then, turning to the security officers, he said simply, escort her out. Kindly. They nodded. As she was led past the dining tables, Julia's eyes darted to the phones pointed her way. The same crowd that once ignored Marcus now parted for him like air making space for gravity. He stood still, watching, not with revenge, with resolution. When the door shut behind her, Rachel's voice returned one last time. Protocol complete. Audit logged. Next step? Marcus glanced around the silent restaurant. Let everyone finish their meal. Justice shouldn't interrupt good food. The room exhaled, a collective release. Some smiled. Some wiped their eyes. But no one looked at him the same way again. For a moment, no one dared to breathe. Julia's footsteps faded beyond the glass doors, leaving behind only echoes and the faint buzz of a dozen cameras still rolling. Marcus stood in the center of the dining room, calm, composed, impossible to ignore. He didn't need to raise his voice. The quiet itself obeyed him. Across the tables, guests whispered. That's him, one said. That's really the CEO. He just fired her right here. Did you see how calm he was? Marcus turned slightly toward the crowd, then to the remaining staff. Keep serving, he said softly. No one's in trouble who did their job. Evan nodded, his hands trembling slightly as he poured water for a nearby guest. Yes, sir. Julia's abandoned badge still blinked red on the hostess stand. Access denied, a small, blinking confession. Rachel's voice came through the phone once more. Mr. Carter, local management suspension complete. Would you like me to inform regional oversight? He didn't look at the phone. They're already watching. And indeed they were. Because the feed wasn't just local. Marcus had designed Echelon's security infrastructure to sync automatically to headquarters during any flagged audit. That meant this entire exchange, the insult, the shove, the reveal was now playing in real time across corporate screens 3 states away. He glanced up toward the nearest camera, its red light steady and unblinking. "You called me a fraud," he said quietly, "in the company I own." The words hung in the air like thunder with nowhere to go. It wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. The stillness made it ring louder than any outburst. Evan froze mid-step. Guests looked at each other. One woman covered her mouth. Another whispered, "That line right there, that's the one." Marcus stepped forward once, not to threaten, but to claim the space that had always been his. He continued, voice steady. "You judged what you saw and forgot what you couldn't. That's how power hides in plain sight quietly, patiently, waiting for arrogance to expose itself." A man at the bar muttered, That's poetic." Marcus smiled faintly. "It's business." Behind him, the corporate officers remained near the door, silent witnesses to the reckoning. The staff didn't move. Even the hum of the air conditioning felt cautious, afraid to interrupt. Rachel's voice returned through the speaker, softer now. "Mr. Carter, would you like me to archive this incident as a training module?" He considered it. "Yes, label it Echelon Prime, the cost of forgetting who we serve, logged and archived." He slipped the phone into his pocket and looked toward Evan. "Son, what's your last name?" "Reyes, sir." "Reyes," Marcus repeated. "Starting tomorrow, you'll report to corporate. Training division. We need more people who speak up when it matters." Evan's mouth opened, but words failed him. "Sir, I thank you. I just thank you." Marcus nodded once. "You didn't just defend me. You defended what this place was meant to be." From the corner, a guest, the woman in the silver dress, spoke softly, almost like narration for everyone else. "He never yelled once." Her husband replied, "He didn't have to." The atmosphere shifted again, no longer tense, but reverent. Every person in that room understood they had witnessed something rare. Power without noise. Marcus reached for his jacket, draping it over his arm with care. "If anyone's wondering," he said with the faintest trace of irony, "the steak was excellent. Compliments to the chef." A ripple of nervous laughter rolled through the room, not mockery, but release. He turned toward the door, sunlight spilling across the marble like a curtain call. For a split second, his reflection merged with the restaurant's gold logo on the glass. Echelon Prime, a Carter brand. And that's when it truly sank in for everyone watching. The man they had judged wasn't trying to prove who he was. He was reminding them who they had forgotten. The line between humiliation and history had just been redrawn quietly, permanently, right there in that room. The night air outside Echelon Prime carried a strange kind of quiet, the kind that follows a storm, not of weather, but of truth. Marcus stepped through the revolving door, the last of the applause fading behind him. The glass reflected his image alongside the restaurant's gold lettering. A Carter brand. For the first time that evening, he let himself breathe. Rachel's voice came softly through the phone in his pocket. "All systems logged, sir. Local media already picked up the live footage. It's trending." Marcus smiled faintly. "Of course it is. Would you like me to handle PR?" "No," he said. "Let the truth speak for itself. It doesn't need polish." He paused under the streetlight, watching cabs rush by, horns blending into the hum of New York. In his reflection on the glass, he didn't see power. He saw responsibility, the weight of what it meant to build something that demanded dignity, not just profit. A voice behind him called out, "Mr. Carter!" It was Evan, still in his uniform, breathless from running out after him. "Sir, wait." Marcus turned, calm as ever. "You're supposed to be helping close." Evan hesitated, searching for words. "I wanted to say thank you, for not yelling, for not becoming like them." Marcus looked at him, young, sincere, still shaken but standing taller than when the day began. "I didn't need to yell," he said. "When you know the truth, silence does the shouting for you." Evan nodded slowly, eyes glistening. "You think people will change after this?" Marcus's gaze drifted toward the city skyline, lights stretching endlessly upward, like ambition itself. "Some will," he said. "Some won't. But every story like this moves the needle, even if it's just a little." Evan exhaled, half a laugh, half a sigh. "You make it sound simple." "It's not," Marcus replied, "but it's necessary." He rested a hand on Evan's shoulder, the same gesture Julia had used earlier, but with meaning reversed, respect instead of dominant. Remember that the hardest part of leadership isn't having power. It's staying human while using it. Evan swallowed. I'll remember. Marcus nodded, then looked back through the glass doors. Inside, the restaurant was alive again, servers moving with care, guests finishing meals in calm conversation. The tension had broken, replaced by something heavier, yet purer, awareness. He turned back toward the street, the city wind tugging lightly at his jacket. You know, he said almost to himself, my father used to tell me, never let them hear your anger before they feel your integrity. Took me 30 years to understand what he meant. Evans smiled faintly. You think he'd be proud? Marcus's answer came without hesitation. I think he'd say, finally. They shared a quiet laugh, brief, genuine, necessary. A black town car pulled up to the curb. The driver stepped out, holding the door open. Marcus nodded his thanks, then looked one last time at the glowing letters behind him. Inside, the hostess, the same one who had dismissed him earlier, stood at the window, eyes downcast but filled with realization. Marcus gave a slight nod, not of forgiveness, but of finality. She understood. That was enough. As he stepped into the car, the cameras from across the street flashed once passers-by, curious, capturing a man they didn't recognize but somehow knew mattered. The door closed with a quiet thud. Rachel's voice chimed again through the speaker. All handled, sir. Any final note for the log? Marcus looked out at the city, his reflection overlapping with its neon light. Yes, he said softly. Note this moment not as punishment but as proof. Proof of what? Rachel asked. He smiled that same calm, unshakable smile that had carried him through the storm. That dignity doesn't need volume, it just needs truth. The car eased forward, merging into the endless stream of headlights. And as the camera inside the restaurant caught one final reflection of his departing figure, his voice lingered like a vow. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the standard. Ugh. The screen would fade to black there, no music, no applause. Just the echo of justice done quietly, beautifully, completely.